History is full of surprises. Sometimes, events unfold in ways so bizarre, so eerily interconnected, that it makes you question whether they're purely coincidence or something more. What if I told you that some of the most famous figures in history, from notorious serial killers to world-famous illusionists, are linked by a web of mysterious events? Could it be fate, mere chance, or a hidden pattern yet to be uncovered? Join us as we dive into some of the wildest historical coincidences and attempt to connect them all in just one video. Buckle up, because this is going to be mind-blowing. Our journey begins in the late 19th century, an era marked by both great progress and chilling darkness. In 1888, the streets of London were gripped with terror. A shadowy figure known only as Jack the Ripper was brutally murdering women in the most gruesome ways imaginable. His identity remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, another predator was at work. H. Holmes, the infamous Devil in the White City. While London reeled from Jack's murders, Holmes was designing his so-called murder castle in Chicago, a building complete with hidden passages, soundproof rooms, and even a crematorium. By the time the 1893 World's Fair arrived, Holmes had claimed an unknown number of victims. Now, here's where things get weird. Both Jack the Ripper and H. Holmes were born in the same year, 1856. Both men used deception and charm to lure in their victims. And even more chillingly, both died in prison. Holmes in 1896, and one of the main Ripper suspects, Michael Ostrog, in 1904. Could their stories be more connected than we realize? Could Jack the Ripper and H. Holmes have been the same person, operating on both sides of the ocean? Some theorists certainly think so. Let's fast forward to World War II for another eerie case of history repeating itself. Imagine two brothers separated at birth, raised by completely different families, never knowing the other existed. Seems like a tragic but ordinary story, right? Wrong. Meet Jim and Bob Lewis. These identical twin brothers were separated as infants and adopted by different families. For 30 years, they lived their lives without any knowledge of each other. But in 1945, fate, or something else, brought them back together. When they arrived at the same draft board for World War II enlistment, they discovered something incredible. Their lives had been mirror images of each other. Both men had been named Jim by their adoptive families, had married women named Betty. Both had named their first sons James, and both had worked in the same industry. What are the odds of two people leading nearly identical lives without ever crossing paths until destiny somehow intervened? If you thought that was strange, let's talk about one of history's greatest illusionists, Harry Houdini. Houdini wasn't just a master escape artist, he was also a fierce skeptic of the supernatural. He spent years debunking so-called mediums and spiritualists who claimed they could communicate with the dead. But here's the strange part. Houdini died on Halloween night in 1926. His cause of death? A burst appendix, allegedly triggered by a blow to the stomach from a fan testing Houdini's claim that he could withstand any punch. Now, on its own, that's already a little eerie. His mother, Cecilia, had also died on Halloween, exactly 11 years earlier. As if that weren't spooky enough, his close friend and famous author, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, had also suffered a tragic loss around the same time. Doyle's son, Kingsley, passed away on October 28, 1918, from injuries sustained during World War I. Houdini had spent years exposing fake mediums who exploited grieving families. Yet in a strange twist of fate, his own death became wrapped in the very supernatural aura he had spent his life fighting against. Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. We've explored serial killers, twins living parallel lives, and a magician's strange fate. What if I told you there was one final connection that ties all of these events together? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yes, the creator of Sherlock Holmes appears at multiple points in this tangled web. Doyle, as you may recall, was a close friend of Houdini. He was also an ardent believer in spiritualism, even as Houdini debunked it. But here's where it gets even more bizarre. Doyle once wrote a short story in 1891 called The Mysterious Client. This story featured a woman named Hilda, who bore an uncanny resemblance to one of Jack the Ripper's victims, Mary Kelly. Did Doyle unknowingly channel the spirit of the times? Did he write about something he should have had no knowledge of? Or was it all just an elaborate coincidence? And that, my friends, brings us to the ultimate question. Are these just random coincidences, or is history playing out patterns we have yet to understand? Are these events simply the result of statistical oddities, or is there something deeper? At work here, perhaps history is filled with invisible threads, connecting people and events in ways we can't yet explain. Maybe, just maybe, we're all part of a story much larger than we realize. So, what do you think? Have you heard of any other eerie historical coincidences? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the strange and unexpected, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more mind-bending history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, history is always full of surprises.